Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Today I'm in this 2006 Lexus RX 400h. It used a 3.3 litre petrol V6 along with a rear electric motor along with a battery pack. So it's a hybrid, which means, well, basically it's more efficient than the standard RX 350. I'll get straight to the big question, fuel economy. Whenever I watch a YouTube video on an EV or a hybrid, that's the one thing that I'm most interested in. If I'm watching an EV, I want to know how many miles it'll do truthfully from its battery. If it's a hybrid, I want to know how much more economical it is than the standard car. A lot of YouTube videos will waffle on for 22 minutes telling me about the boot space and the driving characteristics, when really what I want to know is how many miles per gallon will it do? So the RX 400h will do between 26 and 28 miles per gallon. That's UK imperial miles per gallon, not US by the way. So yeah, around town it'll do between 26 and 28. On a motorway run it'll do between 34 and 36 miles per gallon. Which isn't brilliant, but bear in mind this is a 2006 car, and back in 2006 those figures were quite impressive. They might not be that impressive in 2020, but yeah, 14 years ago they were pretty good. In fact, it's still pretty good compared to an 06 BMW X5 or an 06 Porsche Cayenne. All those non-hybrid SUVs like the ML or the X5 or the Cayenne that don't use a hybrid powertrain will only do 18 to 20 miles per gallon around town and maybe 28 or 30 on a run if you drive carefully. So they're about 6 to 8 miles per gallon worse than this RX 400h. On top of the fuel saving, there are some savings to be made with road tax. Here in the UK we pay an annual road tax and it's based on the vehicle's emissions. So this RX 400h costs around £300 a year to tax, which is substantially less than the £570 you'd pay for a petrol X5 or Cayenne. So in addition to the low running costs and low road tax costs, it's actually quite pleasant to drive because it's a hybrid, it's silent most of the time. Even when the 3.3 litre V6 springs into life, it's still quite quiet and refined. As I've said before with hybrids, the silence becomes addictive. So I'm armed with my bags for life, so I thought we could take it for a little bit of a drive to the supermarket. So you can just hear the V6 engine kick in there as I try and back this off my driveway. But I have been sat here for 5 minutes with everything running. You get this same display here that you would find in a Prius, which tells you where the power is coming from. So right now, for example, the V6 engine is running, which is topping up the car battery. It's not a plug-in hybrid, you don't have to plug it in, it just charges its battery from its engine. When the battery is fully charged, if you drive it sensibly, you will get a few miles out of this on electricity alone, if you drive it sensibly. If you're a little bit heavy with the accelerator, then the engine kicks in straight away to assist you. And when you do accelerate, you do get the nice sound of the V6. Bear in mind it's quite a big heavy car this, so you will find the petrol engine kicks in more frequently than it does on a Toyota Prius. You do get the added bonus though that once you've climbed a hill like I've just done, all the way downhill, you're just running on electricity. And actually while that's doing that, it tops up the battery. It's quite pleasant to drive though, the driving position's very good, I'm sat up high, visibility is perfect, the seats are very comfortable, you get a couple of armrests here, so the driving position's nice. The steering's not too heavy, but it's also not too light. I mean, it's not rewarding if you're a petrol head, but for a daily sort of car to run around in, it's not bad at all. Fortunately, it doesn't have massive wheels, so it doesn't crash around, but if you went with bigger alloys, it certainly would. See, right now the battery's fully charged because I've just driven downhill and topped it all up. So right now I'm just cruising around on pure electricity. The interior quality is very good. I mean, this car's a 2006 and it's done 135,000 miles. And apart from the odd bit of wear here on the driver's door handle and on the armrest, it's in pretty good shape. Also, this does have this light beige leather interior which can show up all the marks, but it's coped with its age and its miles quite well. All of the buttons and the switches feel like they'll outlast you. Everything works. It does make you drive this really sensitively because right now I've just backed off the accelerator because I felt the engine kick in. That's the thing with hybrids, I don't know whether this is good or not, but they do make you quite a slow, conscientious driver. The infotainment screen there in the centre does show its age a little bit, it's the same unit that's lifted straight out of the Prius. But, I mean, it still works, the graphics aren't the sharpest or the best to be honest, but it's quite clear and quite easy to use and quite easy to navigate. It's got SatNav 2, which is all touchscreen. I mean, it is showing its age a little bit now, but it still works, so you get some nice optional extras too. For example, I've got heated leather seats, I've got a sunroof, you get cruise control. You also get a reversing camera and a power lift tailgate, which does beep though, which is a bit irritating. I mean, all those features that I've just rattled off are commonplace in 2020, but back in 2006, it was pretty ahead of its time. So we'll go back to the info screen here, see where the power's coming from. See, right now I'm not using any petrol at all. I'm basically just coasting. You get plenty of cup holders and storage compartments. I like the centre storage compartment here, which opens in a really neat way. So you press this button here to open it, and then press the other button to close it, which I know I shouldn't be in awe of, and yet, strangely, I am. I don't know if you do this, but whenever I try and get maximum MPG out of my car, it all starts well for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then some other idea enters my head, and I completely forget about the hypermiling exercise that I was intending to do. So in terms of performance, the 3.3 litre V6 puts out just over 200 horsepower. You do get an additional 60 or 70 horsepower from the electric motor. So with those two combined, when you sting the accelerator, there's enough power there. In fact, I'll demonstrate that now. It's not quick, but I mean, I'm doing the speed limit there. So it's quick enough. It's not rewarding to drive or whatever, but I have just lost that Audi A6 that was sat on my bumper for the last 2 miles. That little sprint there, though, has just taken its toll on my efficiency record. See what I mean about getting distracted? You can tell it's Japanese, though, because it is a little bit of a button fest in here. There are buttons for everything. But, I mean, I've not found it confusing or anything. It's fairly easy to work and straightforward. Another area where the RX shows its age is the fact that it's got a tape player. Interior space isn't bad. The boot's not a bad size. It's not as big as an ML or an X5 or a KN, because the boot floor is a little bit higher than the rest of those, and also the tailgate slopes down at the back, so you lose a little bit more space there. But overall, it's not too bad. In terms of the cabin space, it's pretty good. We've got plenty of headroom, plenty of legroom, even in the rear. I've always quite liked the styling of this era RX. I know it's a little bit bland, isn't it? It's a little bit Magnolia, but I think that's one of the reasons I like it. It's subtle, and it's not at all pretentious. It just gets on with it. It being, you know, the school run and trips to Waitrose. It is a very middle-class car, the RX, especially the hybrid. I mean, there used to be additional benefits to owning a hybrid like this, in that you wouldn't pay the congestion charge if you drove into London city centre, but that's been scrapped now, so everybody pays it unless you're a complete EV, I believe. So we'll sting it one more time. It does have a bit of get up and go, this, actually. It is sort of hamstrung by its weight, though, but it doesn't feel much slower than a 3 litre petrol X5 or a 3.2 litre KN. It has this CVT automatic gearbox. Now, I've mentioned many times before that I'm not a huge fan of those, because when you mash your foot on the accelerator, all you can hear is the engine struggling and whining. But at least with this, you don't get a four-cylinder engine, you get that nice V6 note. Now, when you accelerate hard in a Prius or an Auris, it makes a right racket. But with this, try it, you get the nice V6 sound, which makes the CVT box a little bit more bearable. And the CVT box in this actually serves the car quite well, because it just adds to that smooth nature. You can now pick up used RX hybrids here in the UK from around £3,000. So they're similar in price to a non-hybrid X5 or KN or ML. And they do represent better value for money, because, like I said, you'll get 6 or 8 miles per gallon more from it and save a little bit of road tax. So in terms of reliability, it's a Toyota product, so it should be pretty good. But there are still a few things that you need to watch out for. For example, this 3.3 litre V6 has a timing belt rather than a timing chain, so that needs to be replaced every 90,000 miles. So you should factor in between £300 and £400 to get that done. Also, I think the water pumps can leak, and I think the water pumps are driven from that same belt, so it would be wise to get the water pump changed when you do the belt. You should service them every 10,000 miles, and when I say service, I mean replace the oil and filter and the other filters. The CVT gearbox, I would always recommend getting a service done on that, just to prolong its miserable life, really. But apart from that, they are pretty good. Now, some of you might be thinking, that's a 14-year-old hybrid, eventually the battery pack, it will need to be replaced. But think of how many of these that will be in scrapyards now. So there are plenty of replacement battery packs to be had. And there are also companies that specialise in replacing the battery packs. So as they get more and more common, you can replace the cells in the battery, which isn't all that expensive. So that's an option. And also, when the battery fails, you can still use this as a standard petrol car. So it's not like it's going to leave you stranded. You might just get the odd warning light flick up. One other thing to mention with this era of Lexus, the keys always seem to break. They haven't done on this one, which is surprising because they always seem to crack. but luckily for about £20 on eBay you can find a replacement shell. It's quite a straightforward job to do. In terms of servicing costs and the cost of parts, that shouldn't break the bank either because, well, they're basically Toyota. So the parts are plentiful and they're not that expensive. So things like brake discs and pads won't cost you an arm and a leg. They do turn you into a bit of an old man before your time though, these cars, because I'm driving this on quite a nice day, heading to the supermarket obviously, and I'm sat here doing 30 miles an hour because I've got one eye on the battery trying to charge it up. I'm not racing down this road trying to drop a gear and, you know, overtake things. This particular car is a good example of what a 14-year-old RX might look like. The lacquer on the wheels is corroded, so they've started to peel and they look a bit of a mess. Now you can get them refurbished, well, various places, for about £50 a wheel. The bodywork's held up quite well, it's not rusted to bits like a Mercedes would of this era. So all in all, buying an old RX 400h wouldn't be such a bad idea. They're not as economical as some might have you believe, and they're crap in the snow. But apart from that, they're pretty good cars. So thanks once again for watching. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already. If you've got any comments or questions, let me know below. I'll do my best to get back to you. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And yeah, that's about it. So cheers guys, thanks very much for watching. I'll see you next time.